guest is going to be with us 5 minutes into the next hour. Then I'm going to open the phones up and cover news. In the final hour, I'm going to get into Glenn Beck because he is the leader of the Tea Party movement. He is bigger than Rush Limbaugh now with his radio and TV show. There's no doubt. But he is calling for new taxes, and it's a very dangerous situation. And so we're going to discuss it because I heard him doing some things yesterday and today. It's just this guy, my gut, everything he does tells me look out, because it's the Republican Party trying to maneuver the revolution of awakening and to control it for the status quo of big government and corporate looting. And I'm going to break that down coming up. Also, more on the flu. Mr. Bloom, I interrupted you 30 minutes ago when you tried to get into the flu fraud. And now it's openly all over the newspapers, at least in Europe and the U.S., but I haven't seen much in England. I've seen some in England in the Telegraph. I mean, major government officials are saying, yes, this was a premeditated fraud and the vaccine was dangerous. The German government wouldn't take it. Their military wouldn't take it. I mean, this is quite a scandal.
Yes, in fact, you're a little bit ahead of me, I have to say, Alex, because I've been in France now for 2 or 3 days, so you're ahead of me. But it's still being, when I left, it was still being the flu. We were still peddling the flu, would you believe, to babies in between 6 months and 5 years old. It's still being, and basically the inference in the advert is that if you don't do it, basically you're a bad parent. I mean, it's quite strong stuff, Alex. It's quite strong stuff. Oh, they're
still advertising it here, too, with the exact same pitch. It's just that simultaneously they say this is the biggest flop ever. People aren't taking it in Europe. They're not taking it here. And it's rotting on the shelves. And it's coming out that it was just a giant hoax.
Well, the British Medical Journal here has condemned it. And I did write a parliamentary question to say, they keep saying people are dying of swine flu. They've been saying, there isn't a single recorded death in the United Kingdom of swine flu. Would you believe? Not a single one. I asked a parliamentary question. There's not a single one. So it's interesting how this scam has been moved forward. And what is another interesting thing, of course, is it not, this is a big money-making scam for the pharmaceutical companies, but they have been absolved of their responsibility to do the due diligence that most pharmaceutical drugs need to do.
Well, they were given governmental liability protection because it was a global pandemic, but we now learn the UN changed its rules for pandemic to give it that liability protection.
Yes, absolutely, and this is how you get these frauds start. It's all, I think we had this conversation before. Follow the money, Alex. You'll normally find when you get to the root of it, it's about money. Somebody's got their hand in the till. It's either politicians or pharmaceutical company or bankers. How on earth we got ourselves into this mess over bankers laughing at us now, laughing at us with their big houses and their posh cars as we've bailed them out, all over the world. How could we be this stupid? I mean, where did it come from?
Well, again, I think what our founding fathers did here in the United States, you look at the Magna Carta and the Parliament Act, it took decades for people in history to get the basic liberties that we fought for. And so I think people need to understand the long view of history. So many people demand instant gratification. They're not happy with the government, but they then just stand down and throw their hands up. That's not the answer. We've got to claw back every bit of freedom we can, and that's how these wars for freedom are won.
You're absolutely right. There's one or two things, if you don't mind me being a little bit parochial, Alex. For example, Friends of the Earth, a big charity in Europe, the World Wildlife Fund, Climate Action Network. Friends of the Earth were given 800,000 euros last year. World Wildlife Fund, 661.
Tell you what, Mr. Bloom, we're doing 5 more minutes. We're back in 1 minute. As we go into the next hour, hold it there,
okay.
And we'll get into how the EU is financing this revolution. I could talk to Godfrey Bloom and the other great people from his party all day long. These guys have really got it right. The UK Independence Party. His website's godfreybloom.mep.co.uk. These are the type of leaders in Europe and England we need to work with because we're all under the same system. He mentions common purpose. They're in mainstream news shutting down websites that disagree with them. I learned here in Austin, any real charity that tries to actually help community, they have these pet charities that come in and shut you down or move you out or force you out. He was talking about them when I interrupted him. He's bringing up how the EU funds all these land-grabbing fake environmentalists. I mean, this is an agenda to destroy anything that makes people wealthy and independent. They want you all bankrupt like North Korea, living under their control. We got 4 minutes, sir. You've got the floor.
Well, let me just talk a little bit about these charities. Friends of the Earth, World Wildlife Fund, Climate Action Network Europe, Age Concern. These are all respectable names, or were respectable names a few years ago, which have been hijacked. Literally millions of European taxpayers' money goes into these, and of course it gives them a seat at board level. If you're putting in nearly €1 million a year into a charity, you get a seat on the trustee board, and they will sing from the same hymn sheet. So all these Oxfam charities and nations, they all think the European Union is wonderful. They all go for climate change and all this sort of nonsense. And the poor old average Joe thinks, well, there must be some truth in it. For example, if Friends of the Earth are saying it, or the World Wildlife Fund, and the president's the Duke of Edinburgh, it's given this respectability. And of course, nobody asks for the accounts. When you buy a flag to stick in your lapel, you don't ask for the accounts, do you? You just think it's all in a good cause. But it's not. And you'll find that they're run by politicos on salaries to die for. We're talking 150,000 a year in pounds, over $250,000 a year, with fabulous pension schemes and expenses. Well, that's a lot of money for a charity. It may not be much for a Wall Street banker, but it's a lot of money running a charity. Our universities, let's look at some of the universities we have in my constituency of Yorkshire and North Lincolnshire. We have an agency, a European Union agency called Yorkshire Forward. And they give millions, the European Union gives millions of pounds a year to Yorkshire Forward, but of course it's only Yorkshire's money. So Yorkshire actually gives somewhere in the region of £700 million a year to the European Union, and we get about 5 or 6 or 10 million pounds a year back, and we're supposed to be thankful. But what do they do with the money, Alex? They fund seats at all the universities, and some of them are Monet seats and some of them are agency funded. So the professor in front of the class of impressionable 18 or 19-year-olds is probably a member of Common Purpose. He's certainly a Europhile. He's certainly a neo-socialist.
And so they're literally putting their people in everywhere.
Oh, they're absolutely everywhere. And of course, if you try and explain that to the ordinary Englishman, they think you're a swivel-eyed lunatic. And I can understand it, because you're an ordinary guy going about your business, Alex, living a life of quiet desperation, desperately trying to make all your bills meet and bring your family up and do the garden at the weekends. It's very difficult to understand that all these organizations have been infiltrated.
But if you control government, you control trillions of dollars. And so you're going to have these swindlers come in and do this. And they've taken over. You call them, little Freemasons. Americans may not know, but there's big controversy in England, of course. To be a judge or a barrister, you pretty much have to be a Mason. And they've certainly turned that fraternity into a implement of tyranny in many cases.
Absolutely, but it's so covert and clever, and of course the end game's long, Alex. Their patience is limitless. They are working to a goal. Give it just off the top of my head, you might be interested in this.
Hold on. I know you've only got limited time. You went to a studio with ISDN. We've got a break. We have the breaks at the end of the hour and start of the hour. You want to come back and finish up on the other side with 3 minutes?
Just a quick 3 minutes, thank you.
Yeah, because I know they're about to kick you out of the studio.
Yes,
we'll
indeed.
be right back with Godfrey Bloom, MEP.co.uk. We'll be right back. Stay with us.